We're on board with these officers from South East London as they prepare to rendezvous with the team from the Met's flying squad. Their target, an organised crime group suspected of involvement in a series of violent robberies. The gang's believed to have struck mobile phone shops in more than a dozen different locations, stuffing holdalls full of high-value smartphones in each raid. This is Rare Access. The flying squad is the Met's elite robbery and kidnap unit, dealing with some of the country's most hardened criminals.
Please open the door, it's going in!
Inside are the two suspects they're looking for.
We'll come down and speak to him just 2 seconds, alright? You're under arrest for previous mobile phone shops between March and June 2025.
As a drug sniffer dog arrives to help search the property, other officers find what they think is a small packet of drugs thrown from a bedroom window.
It's crack cocaine.
Well, it's just after 6 a.m. and the two suspects at this address have had a rather rude awakening. Raids are also happening at another dozen addresses around this area.
Unarmed assets driving around trying to help over.
The UK's major cities have seen an epidemic of phone thefts. In London alone, 80,000 smartphones were stolen last year. Half of all street robberies are linked to mobile phones, netting the thieves up to £400 for each device. Now, organised crime groups, like the one targeted by the flying squad, are stealing in bulk and making huge profits.
These are expensive pieces of equipment they're stealing.
Absolutely. One iPhone can cost in the region of £1,200. In some incidents, they've stolen up to 72 handsets at a time. So it's really, really lucrative.
So we're talking £100,000 a raid?
Yes, absolutely.
Police!
A major drive by the Metropolitan Police has seen a 15% drop in phone thefts this year. The Scotland Yard commander, tasked with reducing phone robberies, believes the phone companies can also help in that effort.
About 3/4 of those phones that leave the UK connect to networks and cloud services overseas. So essentially they're being reused as a second-hand phone in a foreign market. We think that phone companies could work more closely together to block access to cloud services for those devices. So that phone is still a phone in that foreign country, but it can't connect to cloud services and therefore can't operate as a smartphone.
The smarter and more expensive the device, the more attractive they become to the criminals trying to cash in on this highly lucrative trade. But today, at least, the flying squad believe they've dealt a major blow to one organised crime group in the battle against the phone thieves. Mark White, GB News, South East London.
In a rare moment of transparency from one of the UK's most elite policing units, journalist Mark White was granted exclusive access to the Metropolitan Police's flying squad as it executed a precision strike against a criminal gang believed to be behind a nationwide wave of violent robberies, targeting high-end smartphones. The operation, which unfolded in the early hours under the cover of darkness, culminated in multiple arrests and the seizure of stolen goods valued in the hundreds of thousands of pounds, but behind the battering rams and dramatic takedowns lies a deeper political story, one that cuts through debates over public safety, policing resources, and a government struggling to contain a growing sense of lawlessness on Britain Street. The Flying Squad, often romanticized for its cinematic history and hard-nosed legacy, executed what officials called a textbook operation. The gang had been surveilled for weeks, with officers tracking their movements across London, Birmingham, and Manchester. The suspects, mostly young men in their early 20s, were allegedly responsible for a string of orchestrated smash and grab robberies, often involving moped chases, coordinated getaway routes, and brutal violence. White, embedded with the squad for the raid, described scenes reminiscent of a military operation, complete with encrypted radios, real-time satellite feeds, and officers moving with strategic precision. Yet even as the footage paints a picture of justice in motion, it underscores a troubling reality. The sophistication of criminal networks is growing, while public confidence in law enforcement continues to waver. The targets of these crimes? Mostly tech stores and unwitting pedestrians, people walking through shopping centers or high streets with expensive phones in hand, unaware they were being stalked. Data from the Office for National Statistics shows a sharp rise in mobile phone theft over the past 2 years, particularly in major cities. London alone recorded over 90,000 such incidents last year, with some boroughs experiencing double-digit increases. Meanwhile, police charge rates for robbery and theft have plummeted, a fact not lost on critics of the government's crime policies. The success of this high-profile raid will undoubtedly be touted by Home Office officials and Met leadership as proof that the system still works. But for many political observers, it's a band-aid on a hemorrhage. The raid also renews discussion over the role of surveillance and predictive policing. In this case, the operation leaned heavily on digital monitoring, including facial recognition systems, license plate readers, and AI-assisted pattern detection. Civil liberties groups have warned that while these tactics may help secure high-profile busts, they risk ushering in a surveillance state, one where predictive algorithms could.
So will he ensure that if we're not going to be involved in military action, I understand the reason why we might not want to do that, we will ensure robust action is taken underpinned by things that will force Iran to do the right thing rather than just hoping that they will do the right thing.
Foreign Secretary.
Well, I'm grateful to the right honourable gentleman, and I know that he knows how difficult it is dealing with Iran. He will remember that under JCPOA, they were allowed to enrich to 3.67%. 3.67. And today, they're at 60%. And the question is, how could that possibly be for civilian use? And I challenged the foreign minister from Iran about this on Friday. We've had 7 rounds of negotiations with the Iranians, and those rounds begun under his government, and he would have been Foreign Secretary for a period when those begun. And they have obfuscated, they have deceived, and the time now is to get real.
A sharp exchange erupted in Parliament as Iran's uranium enrichment hit 60s, sparking fears over a nuclear breakout. Foreign Secretary James Cleverly said the UK must take robust action to push Iran into compliance, though he stopped short of backing military involvement. Shadow Foreign Secretary David Lammy criticized the government's response, pointing out Iran is allowed only 3.67 enrichment under the nuclear deal, making the 60 figure clearly not for civilian use. The tension highlights the collapse of the 2015 Iran nuclear agreement and deepening concerns over Iran's nuclear ambitions. Lammy called for urgent diplomatic and economic pressure, while Cleverly stressed the UK would act in coordination with allies. Labour appears to be toughening its stance, potentially backing new sanctions. Meanwhile, the Conservatives are walking a tightrope, projecting strength while avoiding escalation. With Iran inching closer to weapons, grade enrichment, pressure is mounting on the UK to respond decisively,